I'm a venture capitalist, and we fund software companies. As you know, the software industry is really exciting right now, and I'm going to tell you about that tonight. We also fund the first round in software companies. So my job is a really great job. I get to audition the future every day. I'm an opportunist, so I'm looking for opportunities, and you are all visionaries, and I'm trying to find the right visionaries to fund. One of our most recent exits was a company called Omniture. We funded 10 people, average age 23, from Salt Lake City, Utah. After 5 years, they went public, and about a year ago, they were acquired for just under $2 billion by Adobe, so it was a good exit. So I was here 3 years ago, and just to show you how fast, how many people here are juniors? Great. When you entered this college, so I had just come here before that. So I was here in the November time frame. So first there was this big meltdown in 2008, so that sort of set everybody astray. But just a quick look back on, people were talking about interesting things. They were talking about software as a service, analytics, open source, virtualization. Nobody used the word cloud. It was all virtualization. There was the company down the street called Eucalyptus, had not been funded yet, nor had RightScale. But there were many changes that were happening there. So at that last time I was here, Facebook only had 50 million users. Now half the US population uses Facebook, or 600 million people worldwide. The iPhone had just been unveiled. There was no iPad. In fact, a year ago, there was no iPad. In the last year, Apple's shipped 15 million iPads, and they think they'll ship 40 million in the next 12 months. Amazon was a big force. We were all talking about Amazon. It had morphed from being a bookseller to being a technology platform. And it actually, because of Amazon's change to a cloud vendor, it really did help launch companies here in Santa Barbara, especially Eucalyptus and RightScale. The app economy was non-existent. It's really hard to believe that the App Store only opened in July of 2008. So in July of 2008, there were 0 downloads and 500 apps. By the end of this last January, there had been 10 billion downloads and 400,000 apps on the Apple App Store alone. And that does not include the Android App Store. As of February of this year, 70 million people in the US own smartphones. And Android phones, not iPhones, is the biggest market share. They're speaking of phones, right on cue. And Google owns the operating system on 33% of those smartphones. So against this backdrop, what does this mean for you, especially those of you who are zooming towards graduation, who are making up companies? A couple things have happened. The on-ramp to be an entrepreneur in software is virtually free. And there's really 3 big circles to write down here. If you draw 3 circles on your page, one big circle is called social, one big circle is called cloud, and one big circle is called mobile. And just to recap again, social we know pretty well. There's the 600 million Facebook users. There are about 550 Facebook apps, and they themselves have about 520 million downloads. In the cloud, let's put Amazon there central stage for now, but there's Microsoft with Azure. And Amazon, there are 400,000 developers that have developed products for the Amazon cloud. Those are probably different than the 400,000 iPhone developers. And in mobile, we've got smartphones and tablets. And we know the users there. 130 million users, roughly 400K with Google, maybe 600K apps, 10 billion downloads, 14 million iPads and growing. So what does it mean if you want to enter one of those on-ramps? If you want to build an iPhone or a smartphone app, you basically go to either the Android site or the Apple site. You download some software, you watch some videos, you might read some documentation, and you build your app. And both Google and Apple know that you have limited time and short attention spans also if you're a software developer. One of the requirements to be a software developer is you've got to have slight ADD. Otherwise, you'll get bored easily. And so this is a great time for software development because there's so much rapid change. So within an hour, you want to get to what we call the magic hello world on the iPhone. Now remember, at this point in time, you've paid no one any money. Let's say that you wanted to get on the Amazon cloud. You might have to pay a few dollars, but you want to try something on the cloud. Still again, your development tools, you probably downloaded open source tools, very robust. In fact, Android is sort of open source. And you started building, paid nothing. So you build your smartphone app. Now what? If you were an old-fashioned software company, you'd have to figure out where are my sales and marketing dollars going to come from. But guess what? If you're on that Android phone, you get free distribution. In fact, Google's cut a deal with all the smartphone carriers that you don't have to even put Google search on, but you have to put the App Store. So you don't pay anything to get your app or your solution in front of the customer. So you don't need any money till that point. The on-ramp is probably the greatest on-ramp in the history of software. We like to call software a capital-efficient marketplace for investors, in that companies can go the distance with significantly less capital than the more capital-intensive areas. You will need money now. And so now where do you go? If you're in the Bay Area, you think, wow, now I have to sort of spruce up my PowerPoint and go to those tough venture capitalists and try to get millions of dollars. Well, what's happened with this rapid change in the software industry is we've had a dramatic change in the investment industry, and it's starting in the Bay Area. And it started as a result of Google. Google hired massive numbers of people. And guess what? Once you get hired, you want to have an important job. Well, even the people with unimportant jobs in the beginning made a lot of important money. So quietly, groups of developers and groups of entrepreneurs started forming their own investment groups. So if you graduated 2 years ago, you would have to go to a dinner club or a social club and meet a bunch of retired people and stand in front of them and hope they like your product. Now today, if you go to the Bay Area, you have your choice of probably 50 angel groups. Entrepreneurs that are one step ahead of you. They build products either for companies that are larger, their companies were acquired, and they've decided to take a time out and pay forward. That's a big difference from even 2 years ago. So what are you going to do then? A check for $200,000 is probably all you need if you've got a great solution in a great market to start lighting the match. You will ultimately need bigger checks to hire more people and build a bigger company, but we're building a better on-ramp for investing for you as entrepreneurs itself. So let's go back to this venture landscape a bit and move back from software. So what happened in the venture landscape after the big boom bust in 1999 is it took a while, but it settled down. And it's been pretty consistent, about $25 billion a year. Doesn't change much. It's up 6% last year over the year before, but it's at a steady state. So all this drama you read about venture capital, it's not as dramatic as it seems. But it's been shifting. Still, software and IT are 50% of the dollars. It really is the bulk of the dollars. Energy is taken a big piece of venture capital, but it's taken that piece out of healthcare. So biotech and healthcare have been laggards in growth. They've actually gone down. But all in all, what that means for you is the materials sciences, clean tech, energy, it is their day in the sun. So for young graduates, again, venture capitalists, the ones that got bored with software, or decided healthcare was too hard, too much friction in that space, they've all put their eyes on clean tech and technology in that space. In fact, there was a very good clean tech conference this week. So if you look at the Green Tech Aspen Conference, you see a lot of great lectures on there. The most recent one was from Bill Joy, the founder of Sun Microsystems, who's a great example at Kleiner, who said, you know, I know this hardware systems business. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to put my brain on clean tech. So if we also then take that big picture, the 25 billion, 50% going to IT, software, the other 50% having a chunk that's new for energy, bringing material sciences into there. Let's also, and healthcare having its position but dwindling a bit. Let's dial back a bit. You do those 3 circles on the page. What is really behind there? Facebook is already built. Google's already built. You know, mobile is in its own battles. So what actually is behind there? If we take a look at these platforms, we really can see the following. One is we've moved to a whole nother layer on software. It used to be that even in the olden days, where some of us were in the room, we call it data processing. But now all the action is at the data layer itself. What that also means is that analytics, you'll hear that phrase a lot coming out. Math majors are in huge demands. A PhD in mathematics is, you know, is just golden. So if we look at the data layer, what does that mean as well? If you take all the social interaction, all the interaction on the cloud, all the stuff on mobile, all the Twitter feeds, all the communications peer-to-peer that are happening, all the streaming of information, the information is growing by leaps and bounds. It used to be that a terabyte was called by customers the terabyte. Now people talk about exabytes. So we brought forward a new category of software called big data. And that is just emerging. There's a very, very small ecosystem that's arising around big data and around an open source platform called Hadoop and MapReduce. That again, you'll start seeing a lot about that. In fact, if you look at the job boards, there's a good IT job board to look at called Indeed.com. That's what are corporations hiring. If you look at that today, you'll see there's almost 3,000 jobs out there that require Hadoop skills. There are not 3,000 people in the universe who have done development on Hadoop and MapReduce. What happened for companies like Netflix, LinkedIn, Zynga, even Omniture, is they found their data kept getting so large. In fact, Hadoop and MapReduce came out of an open source project started by Doug Cutting at Yahoo. And Doug started a company called Cloudera to commercialize Hadoop itself. And the ecosystem is being built around this. But why am I talking about this at great length? Because data brings us into new sciences. It brings us into mathematics, center stage. Even psychologists are being hired in software development organizations. I don't mean that demeaningly, but psychologists are being hired in software development organizations to really understand the meaning of data and the meaning of social algorithms, let alone algorithms we know before. We have a social algorithm-based company called Baynote. It's a company on fire. You think you're searching with Google, but it's watching the social behavior of the searchers and changing the search results on the site for better pull-through for the companies. Also in the big data space, we have tons happening in not just how you process data, but how you build predictive systems. This is probably the hottest area. I just attended IBM's CIO conference yesterday, and they surveyed the top chief information officers in the country, and their biggest need was, how do I do analytics well? We had 14 analytics people from Procter & Gamble in our office last week, and they brought with them 5 wicked problems, which they read off to us, which I'm not allowed to share, and said, do you have any software that can solve those wicked problems? Those wicked problems had 3 characteristics: tons of unstructured data, complex data relationship, and constant refreshing of the data. The latency of the data or the cadence of the data had changed dramatically. So you'll find that there are many new frontiers in analytics. When we worked with Omniture, which did real-time web analytics, the scale of the data there, when it started getting to terabytes, seemed really manageable. And I'll give you another example here of how this big data comes in, because I'm going to tell you how Netflix runs their company. If I'm a brand new company and getting started, usually I'd have to go build a data center, rent a data center. But Netflix, and let's talk about Netflix last year and this year. How many Netflix users are there here? Okay, does anybody get things shipped on DVDs anymore? No. Well, last year, 50% of their customers got their movies shipped to them on DVDs. This year, that number has dwindled to 20%. Netflix decided they were going to be a very efficient company, and they wouldn't build a data center. So they run all of their streaming on Amazon. Now, they've had some issues there if you are a Netflix customer where they've had to adjust streaming rates because of their growth and the rush to move away from physical media and stored media to streaming media. They've had to push Amazon to have their CDN start moving from 10 terabits per second to 50 terabits per second. That's massive. They also, how many have heard of the software source code garbage collection and know what that means? Well, when you're building software, you have this thing called garbage collection. Well, for Netflix, you'll get a kick out of this. Netflix has a thing called the Grim Reaper. They virtualize all the servers they need on the Amazon platform. So they have tens of thousands of virtualized servers. They never see them. They don't know what they are, but they can see if there's a performance issue. So they've built their own garbage collection for VMs, for virtual machines, called the Grim Reaper. So that's their focus on garbage collection, is let's not let a machine go bad. Let's just take it down and have Amazon pop up a new one. So companies are being constructed differently, very technically. And that doesn't mean even a software company is done this way. So when you're even looking at how to form your companies, you're going to get an efficiency curve that is unheard of as you graduate. That is different from even 3 years ago. Remember 3 years ago when I was here, RightScale, which has become a fabulous company, was just helping companies write scripts to provision 3 or 4 machines on the Amazon cloud. The defense contractor who owned the H1N1 database, suddenly the government said, well, we need to know, what's going on here. And they said, well, we don't know what's going on. And they said, well, figure it out. You got the contract to figure it out. So what they did is they brought up a 500 server cluster with Hadoop and MapReduce and just threw the whole H1N1 database on it and had their analysts start looking for patterns. That is a humongous database that was growing by the minute for a while. Fortunately, it did not turn out to be the pandemic we expected. But they learned a lot, not by the sample set, but by using the whole data set. So this is a theme of big data. I also want to mention the cloud itself. The cloud market is still small, and you have a very big cloud community here in Santa Barbara with 2 industry leaders, Eucalyptus and RightScale. You also are fortunate to have Martin Mikos in your community, who is one of the shining stars of the software industry. So if you get a chance to meet him, you should. But it's only about 5% of the 1.5 trillion in information spending right now. It is teeny. It also is a nascent market that is just hitting its J-curve. And why do I say that? Because until about weeks ago, there was just Amazon. Now Microsoft is fully in the market with Azure. IBM announced just yesterday their complete cloud stack. HP got a new CEO and said, we're in the cloud. John Chambers from Cisco said, you know, we got kind of lost as a company, let's do cloud. So we call them the knife fights up there in Silicon Valley are just starting, but it means the market is expanding. Not all those companies will win, but it's a platform you will use. So if you really think about this, another thing to think about is how did an online retailer become the leader in the most important platform for computing there is, the cloud, Amazon. And that is an interesting story in itself, where you have a really interesting entrepreneur, Jeff Bezos. You know, he doesn't go out and talk much. He just thinks all the time, how do I leverage my current assets? He not only allowed people to share his computing resources, but he changed the pricing. Back to this on-ramp. There were some little clouds around before, but they were too expensive. He said, you know, I'm a retailer. Everything will be at retail pricing. So again, the dynamics of the industry are changing as well. You know, Reid Hoffman is another one of the entrepreneurs that you should watch very carefully. Reid was the creator of LinkedIn. You're probably all Facebook users, and maybe there are some LinkedIn users. It's a very big professional community, and they just filed for their IPO. And Reid says if Web 1.0 was go search, get data, and some limited interactivity, and Web 2.0 was real identities and real relationships, then we are at Web 3.0, which is, again, real identities generating massive amounts of data. And Reid himself is one of those entrepreneurs who moved outside of his company. He sits on the board, did some angel investing, and now he is a venture capital at a venture capital firm. Okay, that's the good news. The on-ramp is exploding, and it's free. You can get all the way to the customer. Let me tell you the challenges as entrepreneurs in the software market. 400,000 entrepreneurs are cutting their teeth already on that iPhone App Store platform. The population of entrepreneurs who are sort of saying, can I build a product, can I reach a customer, is exploding. So you won't be the lone wolf out there anymore. There'll be a lot of you. Angel money, at least in Silicon Valley, is relatively easy to get, because here's the criteria for angel money. Angels fund, an angel set, not the dinner crowd group, but an angel set, would probably fund 30 or 40 customers a year. At Y Combinator, they pick 30 that are in a cohort, and they work with them for a year. There's now a Y Combinator for education startups, 40 companies for a year. So they're looking at two characteristics: really smart people and interesting products. They're not looking ahead to say, could that be a big business? Who might your competitors be? How exactly are you going to charge money for that? So they're saying, we're going to give you a get-in card, and that card is usually between $100,000 to $500,000 to see how far you can get as an entrepreneur. It's kind of like getting a massive allowance from your parents. You know, once they give you the allowance, they might give you a lecture of how you should spend it, but they don't really watch it that carefully. They might ask you later, how did you spend it? And if you spend it poorly, you might get another lecture. But think of the angel round as the big allowance from the parents. But it's important. So the onus is on you to sort of think, okay, I've got some seed capital. Am I interested in building a product or a business? Because once that money runs out, if you really want to build a company, you're going to have to come to venture capitalists. That's people like me. And what are our requirements? Which is what entrepreneurs, raise your hands again. The entrepreneurs want to know. So when you come into my office, and you know, I'm a pretty typical venture capitalist, I'm going to sort of say two things. One is, I'm probably going to fund 10 A-round companies this year, not 40. So the funnel gets tighter. I'm going to say that's an interesting product. how do you build a company? How are you going to get to your first $20 million in revenue? So I'm not interested in products, I'm interested in companies. Because I'm looking for larger outcomes, because I'm going to give you bigger dollars. I'm also not going to look at how much experience you're going to have, because I'm going to look at another characteristic. In fact, we just announced the funding of a company yesterday, and the CEO is 19 years old. Oh, yes, I heard over there. Now, he did graduate from high school at 14 and college at 17. So why would we fund him? Because of the other character we're looking at. Even if as founders, you may not be the CEO of the company forever, you may not even want to, you're going to have a big job ahead of you. Because when we give you that bigger check, guess what you're going to spend most of it on? Hiring people. So we're going to say, look you in the eyes and think about this. If Martin Mikos said, gee, I'm looking to join another company, could you recruit Martin? We'd help you, but would Martin want to go and work with you? So that criteria is called, can you attract excellence? We're in a war for talent. You have all these entrepreneurs and all this angel money, and everybody hires a couple people, for their new startup. When we talk about mobile, we'll get to HTML5. You know how many corporate jobs are unfilled for HTML5 people on just one corporate job site? 4,200. There are not 4,200 people that have built pure HTML apps or worked with the platform. So it's a war for talent. So we want to know, can you go to war for talent? And would people want to work with you? The second thing we want to know is, we don't get very many fact cards. It's all going to be assumptions. Do you have a big vision? I'll tell you another one of those Bill Gates stories really quickly. I met Bill in 1984. And so Bill was 27, I think, at that point in time. And he did graduate from high school, but not college. So Bill was getting ready to take Microsoft public. And he looked really worried. And we were on one of these walks again. And I said, well, Bill, you don't want to go public? He goes, no, that's not it, that's not it. And remember, when Microsoft went public, their revenue was about $75 to $85 million. They were one of the largest software companies on the planet. The year Microsoft went public, no software company had hit $100 million in revenue. And that's in 1985. But Bill, so put this in perspective, Bill said, no, I'm worried. I said, what are you worried about? And he goes, I can see all the way to 500 million in revenues, but I can't see the 501st dollar. I was flabbergasted because nobody yet had hit 100 million in revenues. And Bill was worried that in his vision, he could not see 501 million, let alone 100. We also want to know that you're going to take something big. That you don't know exactly how to get there, but you can see a route into a very large market where you could be a significant participant. We have some brilliant companies in the Bay Area. The most brilliant is probably still today Google, because they found the mother lode with AdSense. The biggest one product opportunity probably that we'll ever see. That doesn't usually happen. You usually have to figure out a way to roll that Trojan horse inside a big castle and claim it. And there's one thing about the Trojan horse too, is you got to make sure the castle's big enough so that the Trojan horse can go unnoticed. And you don't want to get out of the Trojan horse until you're inside the castle, because the margin of error is called the moat. So we're looking for big castles, and we'll help you build moats. So remember, number one, we're not just looking at products. We're looking at companies. Number two, it's a talent game. The intellectual capital is highly more valuable than any dollars we can give you. And you have to be able to attract excellence. Number three, we're aiming big. And we want you to have in your sights a big market. In most cases, unlike Google, the market will get slightly smaller. That's why we aim big, to see if we can own large amounts of real estate. we also want you to look at us. You know, the average company that takes venture capital has their A-round investors sitting on their board for about 6 or 7 years. So you're going to see us for a long period of time. So if you get this far that you're actually in a venture capitalist office, you have the right to look around at all the partners. You know, the one that sort of brought you in is not the one you have to take. You have to say, gee, that person over there, that's the person I want to have me, to help me build this big company. That's the risk reduction engineer that I really want as well. Let's go back to these, back to some of the fundamentals again. So a startup, to me, doesn't cost much in dollars these days. It costs courage. It is hard to build a startup. Really hard. An early angel round is great, and you should look at angels as, you know, an allowance to let you form your product, learn more about your marketplaces, figure out, you know, think about how you recruit that talent, and think about if you really have the courage to spend 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to build a great company. Is that what you really want to do? Some people are product builders, not company builders. The bar for the A round is higher, as we just said before. It really is about, can this scale? Is this something that scales to be a big company? And in this on-ramp, we look for a lot of other qualities as well. And this is true in almost all things. We hate friction. What does friction mean? I had a company come in the other day, and they said, we're building this really great product, and we're going to have real estate agents sell the software. Now, I don't want to make myself a customer of one, but I can't remember any real estate agent ever trying to sell me a piece of software. And I said, why would you pick real estate agents? And they said, because they will really understand this. I said, do they like software? And so I opened up a real estate site, and I go, they don't even have video on their site. What era are they in? You know, they've got like 4 ugly photos of this. They don't really demonstrate that as real estate agents, you know, that they really love software. How long is it going to take you to train those real estate agents, you know, how this works? You know, with all the opportunities to do social marketing, with all the opportunities to use marketing technology to reach your customers, why would you pick real estate agents? The friction buzzer was going off, off, off all the time. This was stunning news to this entrepreneur that I would say, why would you pick real estate agents? And let's go through the process of there. So look at your business models, whether it is software, something in material science and whatever, and try to eliminate in your business plan, what are the friction points? Where will it take time or a lot of money? Time and money are friction. That's why we like software. It's getting more and more frictionless. In the case of Facebook, back to social again, almost every major brand has a presence on Facebook. Almost every major brand is using social marketing software to reach you as a customer. You may not notice it, and it may get cut off due to privacy concerns, but it really is a platform for marketing exists out there. So again, look around for friction in your plans as well. The war for talent is even tougher than you think, even if you're in software, because we used to only need to have people that knew how to code. Now we need people that really understand algorithms. One of our companies has mathematicians, psychologists, software developers. If we also think about a couple other things about global. If we look ahead, and I'll talk to you about one of my companies here as an example, none of my companies have all their people in one place. If you make an assumption that your data is not even nearby, you can make the assumption that you are going to start building a global company from day one. I have an open source company that started with 5 people. The founder was from Malta. He flew over for the presentation. 3 of the developers were in Argentina, 1 in Germany, and 1 in Russia. Now today the Malta guy lives in Silicon Valley, and we have about 50 engineers in Argentina. I've never met any of them. To me, they're virtual great engineers. The company I mentioned with the social algorithms, all of their developers are in China. The Chinese founder lives in Silicon Valley. So think globally when you're building these teams or thinking about these ideas as well. This is another thing as you graduate, is the platforms are identical. It might be RenRen in China and Facebook here, but really everybody has those three circles as faceplates: social, cloud, and mobile. And behind them, behind those faceplates is all new technology, trying to be built as rapidly as possible. So for us as venture capitalists, it's a very interesting time because we have so many new entrepreneurs at the finish line. We are staying with our companies longer. It takes longer to build companies to big scale. So true venture capitalists actually fund fewer companies while the angels are funding more. So the competition at the start for angel money, well, that may seem really thrilling. It's harder to get that A round again. And the competition to go the distance, the intellectual stamina, the physical courage to actually go the distance, and the ability to compete. If you don't like competition, do not become an entrepreneur. You can be a really great inventor, but you have to love competition. I'm on the board of my university in St. Paul, Minnesota, the University of St. Thomas, and we don't have athletic scholarships, but our basketball team this year won the NCAA Region 3 championships, and they were number 8 seed, so it was very thrilling, the first time ever for our school. So I went and met every single one of those basketball players because they knew how to win. And that's what I really look for when you're standing in front of me giving that pitch. All these other things, do you have a big market? Can you attract excellence? Is this a defensible product? Is there enough runway in this market to get there? Are there too many competitors at the beginning? I look for one big thing. Are you willing to do what it takes to win? Can you be the number 8 seed and win the championships?
Who have you had as a mentor in your career? Because a lot of the seniors and folks here are going to be looking for people to help guide them as they make their initial steps career-wise.
In the beginning, my dad was a high school basketball coach, as you might guess by now. And he had the misfortune of having 5 daughters, so he never got that team he wanted, but he was the winningest coach in Minnesota during his tenure as a coach. So my mom, always was lecturing him that I wasn't supposed to go into the boys' locker room, but I spent a lot of time in there, so I knew what it would be like when I joined a male-dominated software industry. So my dad helped me out first. But the first time that I got a big customer, I was giving a presentation, and the CEO of that company, and it was a Sequoia-backed company. And Don Valentine, one of the original investors in Silicon Valley, was on the board. And he said, "We're going to take a break now." And he took me off the podium, and I was being really nice and, just reciting what my software did. And he took me aside, and I won't tell you exactly what he said, but he goes, "Come on, Ann, we're already selling your software. You're already winning in your category. Get up there and act like a real winner." And that really, that push of, if you want to get the best scenery, you better be the lead dog, is what he really said. So get up there and act like the lead dog. It was a dog analogy. It was a little pushy, but it made the point. And it was some forceful mentoring, but it was very, very helpful, especially as a young woman in the software industry.
What are your thoughts on hyper-local data? And do you think it's going to blow up soon with smartphone growth and things like that, or do you think it's just hype?
But it really, there's a lot of great things coming down the pike. Near-field communications is very interesting. you know, the concept of augmented reality is really a further extension of, you know, where we're going now. You know, the likelihood that you will swipe your card somewhere by a cash register in 3 to 4 years is very low. You know, so you have your wallet in your hand. You know, really effectively, I should have said this earlier, the PC era is done. You know, I got to see the beginning of it. I got to see the end. You know, it's really, you know, your computer is in your hand. You're going to bring your own device to work. You're going to bring your own apps to work. And, you know, you are already censored, whether you like it or not. Now, there is a lot of talk and debate about, you know, should people be able to identify you and get these offers to you and whatever. But effectively, you know, if you look at it today, how constrained are you other than core tasks? You know, if you have to go back to a computer and do it, and you cannot do it on, you know, a mobile device. So highly local, I think, is part of the long-term, you know, platform here. And it's one of the reasons that we've got all this big data needs, because not only is it, again, highly structured, but when you localize it, you exponentially expand the data relationships as well. So we're just getting there. Near-field communications is brand new. Augmented reality, you know, is really going to change things as well. You probably all read about this company Color that got 40-some million in funding to sort of, you know, I'll share, you know, if I've got a better seat in the stadium, I'll share my photos with you, you know, and so it's sort of a daisy chain of peer-to-peer communication. You know, you can be in my field of communication versus yours. So I think it is overhyped, but truly real. It's very hard to do. Even localizing products to get a normalized database of those SKUs for someone to actually know how to describe what to send you. Most things that people want to give you as offers, there weren't even photographs of them. And photographs are sort of flawed relative to videos. So the technology is being crafted to even deal with localized data in real time while you are being localized.
How important is having a technical founder in a tech startup? And have you ever invested in a company with a non-tech founder?
We have never, well, we've invested in companies where multiples of the founders have not been technical. But we have never invested in a company. Oh wait, I will take that back. I'm going to take that back totally. We have a really hot company in Santa Monica. The leadership teams now in the Bay Area called Ace Metrics, and they do overnight analytics on your television ads. $60 billion marketplace in the U.S. And even before your television ad breaks, they'll be able to tell you our males, females, what ages, what income group are going to like it. Does it have desirability in it? Will it sell product? Through their analytics overnight. So we had a walk-in with an advertising agency guy and a woman who was in the analytics space. She had never written code, but she was a person that was an algorithm person. She had never codified those algorithms into a software solution. But before they came to us, she had decided that this could be highly automated. Think of it as coming out of a university almost. She's the university. So she found some programmers in Fresno and said, codify this. So I said, okay. And she gave him a little bit of money. I was concerned that she might have accidentally transferred the intellectual property over to them, which she had not. I never met the programmers in Fresno. She ran the prototype. She could not explain one line of code from the other, but she could explain how the analytics work. And we funded them about 1.5 years ago, and they just finished a $1.6 million quarter this quarter. So from a two-person walk-in without a technical founder with some silent partners in Fresno, we did fund them. It is rare. And usually what happens if somebody has outsourced software development, the software had to be rewritten because it was a prototype. It's not commercial grade. They may have accidentally transferred their IP to a third party that's not part of their employees. But it is rare, but this company is on fire right now, so it'll be a big winner from the two-person walk-in. So yes, I have, but don't count on it.
If your idea is actually self-fundable from the 3 Fs, family, friends, and fools, would you still recommend taking venture capital money or angel money for their value added?
Well, the angels that I'm talking about, that are forming in the Bay Area are truly entrepreneurs committed to building companies. The angel groups there's a website called Angel List where you'll find them all on, and you'll find the early stage investors on there as well. So a lot of things are happening with those angels that wouldn't happen with just, I convince my relatives to give me money. They have soirees where they bring later stage venture, A round venture people in to meet them early. They sort of decide which are winners and guide them along as winners and let the other products just become products. They actually have lots of talent showing up there saying, hey, I want a job, but I don't want to found anything. What's the best founding team, and can I audition for a job there? So there is a big difference between company building and securing funding. And the first software company I built, there were no venture capitalists around. So my brother, who was my relative, gave me a little bit of money, $500. But he was in high school, so he had no help. He was not helpful in helping me build the company. But I think that any unfair competitive advantage you can get at the start will serve you well. And if you can get that from a funder, you should take the money from them. If you don't feel you're going to get an advantage other than just money, don't take it. Because otherwise it is just that. We really work hard to bring our companies customers, employees, partners. We live and breathe the software industry. The software industry is in our office all the time. We bring companies in. When I talked about Procter & Gamble coming in with their analytics thing, those 14 analytics people also visited 5 of our companies to do business with them. They probably wouldn't have visited my brother, for example. So yes, the answer is I would take money from a source that gives me an unfair competitive advantage beyond the money. Otherwise, the table stakes are the same.